14 inches of annual rain, barely enough to soak the ground, was never supposed to support millions. Yet Los Angeles thrives, a megacity kept alive by water traveling 200 miles from places like Owens Valley. The system that made this dream possible also created enormous, invisible risks with every new suburb and freeway. So what happens if that supply stumbles? The answer begins with the moment water transformed the future of Los Angeles. William Mulholland stood at the edge of the San Fernando Valley on November 5, 1913, watching a torrent of water spill from the new aqueduct. For most of the year, Los Angeles barely saw more than 14 inches of rain, enough to turn hills green for a few weeks, then back to gold and dust. Yet here was a river, engineered from scratch, flowing 233 miles from the eastern Sierra. The scale of the project was almost unthinkable for its time. A chain of tunnels, siphons, and concrete channels, all built by hand and dynamite across desert and mountain. Mulholland, a self-taught engineer from Ireland, had gambled the city's future on this single idea. He dismissed local sources as inadequate, convinced that only the distant Owens River could quench the thirst of Los Angeles. With Fred Eaton acquiring land and water rights in secret, and a $23 million bond fueling construction, workers began digging in 1908. They blasted through granite, braved flash floods, and laid pipe across terrain that had never seen a city's shadow. By the time the first water arrived, Los Angeles had outgrown its old boundaries. The aqueduct's opening was more than a technical feat. It was an act of ambition that rewrote what was possible in the American West. Mulholland's words at the opening were simple. There it is, take it. The city took it, and everything changed. Water from the Owens Valley did not just fill reservoirs, it made new neighborhoods possible, powered industries, and set off a wave of annexations that would quadruple the city's size in less than 20 years. The dream of Los Angeles, lush, green, and ever-expanding, now had a lifeline. But with every new pipe and lawn, the city's future became tied to water that came from far away, over mountains and deserts, through a system that had to work every single day. Imported water didn't just quench a city's thirst, it redrew its shape. After the aqueduct's arrival, Los Angeles annexed vast tracts of land, stretching its boundaries from 108 to over 440 square miles by 1930. Suburbs that once seemed too dry or distant were suddenly viable. Neighborhoods like Eagle Rock and Watts joined the city, their futures secured by the promise of a steady tap. Developers carved out low-density subdivisions across the San Fernando Valley, selling the dream of a green lawn and a private driveway. The city's planners, now flush with water and ambition, chose to spread outward rather than build up. Zoning favored single-family homes, and new arrivals found space for gardens, fruit trees, and swimming pools. By the 1920s, car ownership soared, one vehicle for every 3.5 residents, outpacing the reach of streetcars and making far-flung neighborhoods accessible. As the population boomed, so did the appetite for roads. Early paved highways gave way to the nation's first modern freeway, the Arroyo Seco Parkway, in 1940. Within 2 decades, a lattice of freeways fanned out from downtown, connecting new suburbs to the city core. Funding came from local bonds, state gas taxes, and federal aid, each dollar reinforcing the commitment to a car-first city. Every new mile of road and pipe locked in the city's low-density form. Sprawl multiplied the demand for water, not just in homes, but across thousands of acres of lawns and landscaping. The promise of endless supply made outward growth feel inevitable. Yet with every annexation and freeway, Los Angeles was making a long-term bet that water would always arrive, and that the city's engineered lifeline could keep pace with its ambition. By the early 1920s, the Owens Valley was running dry. The river that once fed farms and orchards now flowed south, locked inside a concrete channel. Families who had relied on irrigation for generations watched their fields turn to dust. Local ranchers and townspeople pleaded for relief, but the city's answer was always the same. The water belonged to Los Angeles now. Frustration built until, in 1924, it boiled over. That spring, A group of valley farmers calling themselves Riders took matters into their own hands. Under cover of darkness, they dynamited sections of the aqueduct, blowing open gates near Alabama hills and letting water spill back into the parched land. For a brief moment, the river returned to the valley. The sabotage did not stop the flow for long. City crews repaired the damage and federal troops were called in to guard the aqueduct, but the message was clear. Los Angeles's lifeline came at a cost, and the people left behind would not be silent. The tension between engineered ambition and local consequence reached its breaking point just 4 years later. On the night of March 12, 1928, the St. Francis Dam, Mulholland's latest project built to store aqueduct water in the hills north of the city, suddenly collapsed. A wall of water swept down the San Francisco Canyon, destroying everything in its path for more than 50 miles. Entire communities vanished overnight. Official counts put the death toll between 400 and 600, making it one of the deadliest engineering disasters in American history. Investigations revealed that warnings about the dam's unstable foundation had been ignored. Mulholland, once the city's hero, took full responsibility and never worked as an engineer again. The aqueduct had made Los Angeles possible, but these early fractures exposed the city's hidden vulnerability. Every mile of pipe and every new reservoir carried the weight of distant consequences, reminders that the dream city's survival depended on a system that could break as easily as it was built. Los Angeles runs on a water supply network that stretches farther than most people realize. Every day, more than 4 million residents depend on a carefully balanced mix of sources. About 45% of the city's water still travels down from the Eastern Sierra through the Los Angeles Aqueduct, an engineering legacy that began with Mulholland. Another 30% arrives through contracts with the Metropolitan Water District, known as MWD, which acts as Southern California's water wholesaler. This water comes from hundreds of miles away, pumped from the Colorado River and Northern California's State Water Project, crossing deserts and mountains to reach the city. The Metropolitan Water District is not just a supplier, it is a regional backbone. Created in 1928, it now serves 19 million people across 6 counties, including Los Angeles. The Colorado River Aqueduct alone runs 242 miles, climbing nearly 1,900 feet in elevation through a series of pumping stations before descending into the LA Basin. The State Water Project, meanwhile, lifts water almost 2,000 feet up and over the Tehachapi Mountains, drawing on huge amounts of electricity to bridge the gap between the Sacramento Delta and Southern California. These invisible pipelines are some of the largest energy users in the state, making every drop in a Los Angeles faucet the product of both distance and power. Within the city, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power manages a grid of pipes that would circle the globe if laid end to end. More than 8,500 miles of mains and trunk lines carry water from distant aqueducts, local groundwater wells, and recycled sources to neighborhoods across the basin. About 20% of supply comes from groundwater, drawn from aquifers beneath the San Fernando Valley and other pockets, recharged by both imported water and limited local rainfall. Recycled water, treated and reused mostly for irrigation and industry, makes up the final 5%, a share that agencies hope to expand in coming years. The allocation of water is dictated by a complex web of contracts, rights, and institutional boundaries. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power owns and operates the city's share of the aqueduct and local wells, while buying imported water from MWD under long-term agreements. MWD negotiates with state and federal agencies for access to Colorado River and State Water Project flows, competing with other cities and agricultural districts across the Southwest. Every agency, from the smallest local water district to the massive MWD, has a defined role in keeping the taps running. All of this infrastructure is engineered to move water across vast distances and dramatic changes in elevation. The largest single lift, nearly 1,900 feet, happens at the Jean pumping plant on the Colorado River Aqueduct, where powerful motors push water up and over the desert's highest ridges. From there, gravity and additional pumps guide the flow into the city's reservoirs and distribution network. The system's complexity means that a single point of failure, whether from earthquake, power outage, or drought, can have consequences that ripple far beyond city limits. Each part of the network, every pipeline, pump, and reservoir, plays a role in a supply chain that must function without interruption. That is what keeps Los Angeles alive every day against the odds. Low-density neighborhoods stretch across the Los Angeles basin, each one stitched into the city's lifeline by hundreds of miles of buried pipe. Sprawl demands more than just water. It demands infrastructure that can reach every cul-de-sac and hillside. On average, 40% of residential water use in Los Angeles goes outdoors, soaking lawns, gardens, and swimming pools that would never exist without constant delivery. Every new subdivision adds not just homes, but thousands of feet of additional pipe, valves, and joints, each one a potential point of failure. The city's water system is now one of the largest in the world, but size brings fragility. Over 8,500 miles of mains and trunk lines cross the city, and more than 6% of those pipes are classified as high risk for leaks or breaks. Many are over 80 years old, laid when the city's edges were still orange groves. Aging iron and steel run beneath busy streets, often out of sight until something goes wrong. In July 2015, a water main running under Sunset Boulevard ruptured without warning. 15 million gallons poured out in just a few hours, enough to supply thousands of homes for a week. The torrent carved a crater into the pavement and sent a river of water down into UCLA's Pauley Pavilion, flooding the basketball court and damaging campus buildings. Field crews worked around the clock to shut off valves and pump out water, but the damage was done. Traffic snarled, classes were canceled, and questions about the system's resilience rose to the surface. That single break was not an outlier. On any given day, field crews respond to dozens of leaks and bursts across the city, prioritizing the worst cases with a triage system built on risk scores and water loss estimates. Maintenance is a constant race against time. Each year, the Department of Water and Power replaces about 225,000 feet of mainline pipe, targeting the 6% most likely to fail. But with so many miles in the ground, and new stretches added every time the city grows outward, catching up is a challenge. Temporary fixes and emergency repairs are common, especially in older neighborhoods where high-pressure mains run beneath narrow streets. The sheer scale of the network means that even a small percentage of high-risk pipes adds up to hundreds of vulnerable segments. The city's outward growth, once seen as a sign of progress, now multiplies the risk. Every new lawn, every backyard pool, every additional mile of pipe increases the strain on a system that was never designed for this kind of sprawl. When a major main breaks, the consequences ripple outward: lost water, property damage, and sometimes days of disruption. The promise of endless supply comes with a hidden price, a network so vast that keeping it running requires constant vigilance, and a single failure can bring the system's fragility into sharp focus. Colorado River water once seemed limitless, but the past 2 decades have erased that illusion. Since 2000, average flow on the river has dropped by nearly 20%, squeezed by drought and higher temperatures across the west. The snowpack that feeds the river now melts faster and arrives earlier, leaving less to fill Lake Mead and Lake Powell, reservoirs that have both hovered near historic lows. For Los Angeles, these numbers are not abstract. The Metropolitan Water District, which supplies 1/3 of the city's water, faces annual allocation cuts that can reach up to 4 million acre-feet across the Southwest. In 2022, federal proposals threaten to reduce California's share by as much as 1.5 million acre-feet, a volume that would wipe out nearly all of Los Angeles' entitlement to Colorado River water in a single year. Competition for what is left is fierce. Cities, farms, and entire states negotiate over every drop, while environmental regulations demand that some waters stay in the river to support ecosystems. Each round of drought brings new restrictions, and every shortfall means more pressure on local reserves. Meanwhile, the cost of moving water climbs higher. Pumping water over the mountains from the Colorado River and Northern California now costs over $200 per acre-foot, driven by rising electricity prices and the sheer distance involved. These invisible expenses pile up on ratepayers and city budgets, making imported water not just scarce, but expensive to keep flowing. The old promise of endless supply is being rewritten by climate and competition, pushing Los Angeles toward a future where the familiar model of import and sprawl grows less reliable with every dry year. Pure water. LA is taking shape on the city's western edge, promising to add up to 70 million gallons of recycled water per day by the middle of the 2030s. At the heart of this effort, engineers are transforming the Hyperion Water Reclamation Plant into an advanced purification facility. Wastewater that once flowed out to sea is now filtered through membranes, treated with reverse osmosis and ultraviolet light, and injected into underground aquifers. This water, after blending with local supplies, will eventually return to taps across Los Angeles. The goal is both simple and ambitious, to replace a significant share of imported water with a local, drought-resistant source. The price tag for this transformation is steep, upwards of $8 billion for full build-out, with the first phase alone accounting for nearly $3 billion. It is a multi-decade project, with milestones stretching into the 2040s. The first 70 million gallons will cover about 10% of the city's daily demand. Orange County's groundwater replenishment system, already producing 130 million gallons per day, stands as a proof of concept. There, advanced purification has safely supplied drinking water for more than a decade, offering a benchmark for Los Angeles to follow. Beyond recycling, the city is expanding stormwater capture. Spreading grounds in the San Fernando Valley now collect runoff from heavy rains, recharging groundwater basins that once sat idle. These measures will not make Los Angeles fully independent from imported water, but they offer a path toward greater resilience, a way to adapt rather than retreat as the old lifelines grow less certain. Every day, over 80% of Los Angeles water still travels hundreds of miles to reach the city. As climate volatility and competition increase, that engineered lifeline grows less certain and more expensive. The true future of Los Angeles depends on how quickly it can reinvent its relationship with water. In the end, survival favors cities that adapt, not those that simply endure. What kind of city will Los Angeles choose to become?